This show is sponsored by Sevi, answering all your commercial real estate needs. Sevi is the first commercial real estate company committed to the 4 C's: commercial real estate, community, content, and culture. Go visit Sevi at Sevi, SEVI, properties.com. Again, SeviProperties.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. We have Elizabeth O'Donnell. Liz is the founder and CEO of Aliyah in Action. Welcome to the show, Liz.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. Thank you. So before we go into your personal story and journey, in case the audience listens and they're like, what is Aliyah in Action? What do you folks do there, please?
Yeah, so we are a nonprofit organization based here in DC, but we do serve families nationwide. And, this is a project that I got started after the stillbirth of my daughter, Aaliyah. And so I just wanted to find a way to give back to others. And so we provide tangible bereavement support for families that experience any form of baby loss, just really creating a community. And then, of course, the mental health aspects of bereavement support are really our bread and butter.
It's obviously sad how this came about, but it's great that you do this. And when I first heard about you, I didn't even think about that. And as far as what about a person who actually has gone through this? Is there anything for them? And it's amazing that you started this organization.
Thank you. Yeah, there's what I found is that, and in my own experience, right, there were so many things for the baby in terms of memory making. And I always say this is my classic line, my griefy joke is that it's not all about the baby, right? Like I'm the one that still has to be here and function and go to work and be social and all of those things. And we need something to help us through that. So it's not all about the baby. This is specifically for parents in their journey.
I love that. Are you originally from the DMV area?
I'm not. I'm a transplant, but I've been here long enough. So I am originally from Jersey and I went to GW for undergrad. I'm a former elementary teacher. So I stayed at GW for my master's in education. And now, with all of the advocacy work that I do with the growth of Aliyah in Action, I am back at GW for a third time for a master's in public health.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So yes, I just took an epidemiology final yesterday. And I have a paper due tonight at midnight. So we're chugging along with this degree, but I know it'll come in handy. And yeah, GW brought me down here and it has allowed me to stay here. So
Oh, that's great. Have you started that paper due tonight?
yes, it's almost done.
Oh, okay.
I proofread something like 10,000 times. So
Okay. All right, great. So you're originally from Jersey. What part of Jersey?
Central, like right by Rutgers. I grew up there and I honestly thought that, after I graduated GW from undergrad that I would go back and teach there. But I just fell in love with DC and, so many of my college friends ended up staying and it's such an easy drive back and forth to Jersey. So I go home often, but DC is definitely my home. And Aaliyah's dad is DC born and raised, so I can't say that I feel like I'm a true Washingtonian, but I feel like I'm pretty close.
But I grew up in the DC area, and so there are
Okay.
a lot of transplants here, and that's normal just because it's the nation's
Yeah.
capital, right?
Yeah.
And you see that a lot in major metropolitan cities too in this country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy I made this choice to stay for sure.
So growing up in Jersey, Liz, did you know what were you into? Did you know you wanted to maybe go into teaching, which I know that's what you ended up doing in college?
Yes. So I have been wanting to be a teacher. I mean, since I knew what a teacher was and since I went to school, right? So I used to, in the basement of my mom's house, it was a school. I set it up to be a school. I would make, play lesson plans and all of that stuff. Teaching was and still is who I am as a person. And while I have left the classroom, my teaching, my role as an educator has just kind of shifted into something else now.
Sure.
But Yeah, an educator is who I am. It's who I've always wanted to be. And I had a great experience while teaching.
Were
Yeah.
any of your parents teachers? I mean,
No,
is it no?
no,
No one in the
no,
family?
no, nope.
Okay.
Just
So,
me.
people like to play house, growing up or something, or
I was
uh,
playing teacher.
you were
I
playing
was
teacher.
playing
That's
school.
interesting.
Yes. hmm
Do you, I wonder, did you see something maybe on TV or somewhere, or where do you think that interest came from? Or it just came naturally as far as playing teacher?
I have no idea. And it's really crazy. And I've had this conversation with my mom a few times, but I didn't particularly love school growing up. Like,
Hmm.
I enjoyed learning, but I didn't really love my experiences in school. And that seems so, it seems like, oh, I must have loved my experiences at school that wanted me to be a teacher, but it was kind of the opposite for me. And just it's interesting reflecting on that because I mean, teaching, I never wavered from that. I always wanted to teach. I'm not really sure what sparked that in me.
Hmm.
But I think it was there long before I even knew.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess graduating high school in Jersey, you knew right away that you wanted to get a degree in education or some form of that nature.
Yes, yeah. And GW did not offer that. So it was, just undergrad and then you could go straight into grad school, which I did. So I majored in sociology and psychology. And then I just went into the GW master's program for education.
So then once you finished the master's program, is that when you started teaching?
I did. Yep. I started. I've only ever taught at one school. It was where I also student taught in DC over on the Hill. And
What school is that?
Watkins Elementary School, Capitol
Okay.
Hill School. I loved it. My colleagues, were just it's all about the teachers, right? I'll
Hmm.
be honest, it's not always about the administrators, but the teachers are what make your job great and the families. And I am just so I love all of the Watkins families and we're still so close today. So it's more than just being a teacher. It was a whole community for me.
That's great. What did you teach?
First grade math and science. I kind of bounced around with different grades for I taught first, second, and third, but first grade, which is the last grade that I taught, was definitely my favorite.
Okay. So
Really,
then,
really shaped their minds.
yeah. So then you were teaching and you got pregnant for the first time, or what happened?
Yes, yep. So during COVID, at that time we were obviously teaching virtually. Found out I was pregnant, was super excited. Um, and then it went right into the summer. I found out right at the start of summer break. And so, yeah, I mean, going back while pregnant, still virtual, all of that was great. It was kind of nice being at home during that time. And then, everything drastically changed. Around Thanksgiving of 2020 and certain events that happened after as far as my paid family leave being revoked from me by DC public schools. That just it told me where I was valued and where I was not, and I was not going to work for a place that did not value me as an educator, so I
Hmm.
ended up leaving.
Yeah. Is it okay if we go into exactly what happened?
Sure. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a normal pregnancy or okay.
Yeah, everything was great. I have since, and this, kind of, sparked me wanting to get a degree in public health is that there are just so many things that the United States prenatal care, this system does not cover and will have you think that everything is rainbows and unicorns until it's not. I had a super healthy pregnancy and I was checking every box, which means I was just kind of pushed through. Which for me was not the right move. In fact, a lot of stillbirths happen to low risk healthy pregnancies
Mm.
because certain tests are just kind of overlooked or not done here in the States. So everything was really great up until the moment that it wasn't. And so I had felt reduced fetal movement while I was actually decorating the house for Christmas. And I decided to take myself in to get checked out. And as a first time mom, I I'd never been pregnant before. I thought that I was being annoying, or, I was being, I was just worried too much. But I obviously made the right move with the encouragement of my doula to go to GW Hospital get checked out. And then everything kind of changed from there.
Wow. And how many months or weeks were you in at
About
that?
32 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
So we had just had our baby shower 2 weeks before at District Winery. It was so great because we were able to do it outdoors. The weather was amazing. Um, so it was a really fun day. It was also the day that Biden had been confirmed president. So Navy Yard was just kind of celebrating. And then we at District Winery were celebrating. And it was just a really nice, lovely day. And I this is something I say a lot. It was very over the top and extra, but I'm so happy that I did that because that's the only party Aliyah will ever have. And I'm not someone that wants to get married. So for me, it was like, okay, mom, anything you were saving for a potential wedding, put it to this baby shower. And I'm so happy that we did that because it was an amazing party for our girl.
Do you remember when was the due date, Liz?
Yes, January 28th of
Okay.
2020.
So January 28th, and then you go into GW. What day do you remember?
It
You
was
said so November,
November 28th. It was exactly like 2 months
2 months
before.
before. And that's when,
Actually, today was January 26th. I always get the November 28th is when I took myself to the hospital, but I did not deliver Aaliyah until December 1st. I wanted to, when you're in those moments, you've lost all control. And for me, I was just grasping at straws for anything to try to control. And so I wanted to stick to my birth plan as much as possible, which was as little intervention and unmedicated as possible. But it got to a
Mhm.
point where that just wasn't going to work. So um, I ended up just delivering her on December 1st. But yeah,
And when you went there, did they know right away, or I guess,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And I'm still very close with the nurse that, was there searching for a heartbeat. I'm very close with her. She actually came back on her days off to spend time with us, which I was just so, it was just so lovely that she did that. And yeah, I'm still close with several of the nurses at GW. And for Aaliyah in Action, GW was our first partner hospital, which was very important to me.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, gosh, I just I can't even imagine. As I mentioned before we started recording, I have three boys, and just going through that. So you come in, they break the news for you, and
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, how did it come about? I mean, why did they say this happened?
Well, I mean, at that time, me, like so many other, parents that have heard this, there's usually no reason. If there's some sort of cord accident, then that's a very obvious reason, right? But, after I delivered Aaliyah, they basically said, she looks fine. So we're not sure what happened. And to me, that just did not make sense. But thousands upon thousands of families are told that in the United States every year. And there is always a reason that this happened. It just might not be so easy to find. And it wasn't until we sent placental slides to a researcher at Yale that we found out her true cause of death. And this is no fault, by the way, to anybody at the doctor that I was with at the hospital. A lot of OBs and midwives, they just don't know themselves because
Hmm.
the people in charge are not always giving up to date information for doctors to know about, causes of death and things like that. But it basically, boiled down to Aliyah was growing just fine and the placenta was not. And
Mm.
I have no control over that. The placenta it's a crazy thing. We don't really think about it that often, but now, obviously I talk about this a lot and I'm always learning, but um the way that the researcher at Yale explained it to me was Aliyah ran out of gas. So the placenta could no longer compensate for her growth. And so there was nothing wrong with her. It was the placenta. And this is just an area of pregnancy that is not focused on in the United States the way it is in other countries. Other countries measure the placenta, and there's a really great group in the US called Measure the Placenta that are trying to get some of these recommendations changed, but it is really, really hard. Um, so yeah, that's our story in a nutshell. And, when I was told there's no heartbeat, we can't find a heartbeat, and when everything started sinking in, for me, I was just numb. I was like, I'm very much like a checklist person. I'm like, okay, I have to do this, I have to do this, and then I can go home and I don't want to talk to anyone for a very long time. Um, and yeah, I mean, everything after Aaliyah has just changed so much. I always call my life before Aliyah and after Aliyah. And I just had no idea what would be coming down the pipeline after losing her.
So basically, Liz, is Aaliyah was growing normal, but the placenta wasn't, and that was the problem.
Yep. Yep.
Is there, besides that test where you sent it into Yale, could something, let's say if they would have found that earlier, could something would have happened differently to change how everything transpired, or what would it?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. And I feel like a defense mechanism of mine has been to not think about that too often because then I feel like I'll get angry at people. But
Sure,
yeah, I mean, we would have at least, I would have liked to know, right?
sure.
And maybe we could have come up with a plan. Maybe I would have been more closely monitored. That would have had, she probably would have had to be delivered on the early side. And the United States is not interested in that because of high NICU costs. And so this is really hard to hear, but I need people to hear it. Losing one baby to our healthcare system is not that big of a deal, whereas high NICU costs are much more of a big deal to them. So they're willing to let one or two go if it means their NICU costs are down just a little bit. And that is the very sick and sad reality of our healthcare system.
I'm sure with all this, you've been researching as far as our healthcare system in the United States compared to other countries in the world. Is there anything that you've seen out there that other countries do that you're like, huh, this is great. The US should incorporate this or some type. Like, what have you seen out there?
Yes. So, I mean, I've had the privilege to actually travel to Manchester to kind of check out this very same thing. They do a lot more tests. Like I'll use Measure the Placenta because that would have benefited me as an example.
Hmm.
Um, it is just not something that is routinely done in the States the way it is in some other countries. And placentas are not being studied the way that they are in other countries. And I kind of, as a little test, my friends and I, we seem to kind of all get pregnant at or around the same time. And I had asked my friends, I want you to ask your doctor to measure the placenta and see what they say. And all of their doctors said no because it wasn't important. Not one friend came back and told me that the doctor said, okay. They all said, oh, that doesn't matter. Like everything is fine. Baby's growing fine. So don't worry about that. And even when they would share, I think I had one friend whose doctor said, after she heard, the friend shared what had happened to me, she said, okay, we'll do it if it'll make you feel better. But the other ones, the doctors just kind of brushed it aside, which is really unfortunate. There are some doctors I know of, a couple in the DC area that do it no questions asked, but they mostly only work with families who have experienced loss. So while I haven't gone down that journey yet through a second pregnancy, I know that when I do, I will be searching for a provider that will, perform a 2 second scan. I mean, it takes 2 seconds, but there's no insurance code for it. And so that kind of puts everyone in a tizzy for whatever reason. And those are things that in other countries, they don't have those barriers of insurance prohibiting you from doing certain things. Um, so yeah, other countries have drastically reduced their stillbirth rates, and the United States has remained stagnant. And I think we are 48 out of 50 for high income countries with our stillbirth rates. It's abysmal.
It's horrible.
Um, Yeah, which is why I've now dedicated my life to, not only preventing, and that's something another nonprofit I'm involved in, but also just being there for the families that experience this. Because until we figure it out, we're averaging 21,000 stillbirths a year. And in the United States, I just find that beyond shocking. I can't think of a correct word that's not a little too off color to describe how that makes me feel knowing those statistics.
So it really just takes 2 seconds. So they don't even have to send you to another specialist to measure your
Just an
placenta.
ultrasound. Nope, nope. It's just a part of the ultrasound. The way
And
they measure, I had always been told during my ultrasounds, Aaliyah was very tall, like very long. And that's because I'm extremely tall and so is her father. So if you can tell me that, surely you can also, without any problem, tell me the size of the placenta that is supposed to be keeping her alive.
mhm.
So it's very frustrating, but there are so many families, unfortunately, families that have experienced this, that are working hard to kind of change some of these prenatal care procedures and routines to just increase the overall care.
Yeah. It's crazy because if it only takes 2 seconds, and okay, I get it. Maybe there is no medical healthcare code to put in to build the insurance.
Right.
Okay, just 2 seconds. Maybe you might have to eat that cost, but I mean,
Don't
all
want
the,
to. They don't want to. It's crazy.
wow,
Yeah.
gosh. Um, wow. So Liz, so after you go through this, they discharge you, you go home. How was that whole healing process for you afterwards?
It was pretty rough because it was the holidays. And I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, I'm never going to have a good Thanksgiving again and I'm a holiday person. Like my home is decked out. Like I am all about the holidays. I'm not going to have a good Thanksgiving anymore because that's the last time I felt her move was Thanksgiving Day. I'm never going to have a good Christmas because this all happened, on December 1st. Um, so it was really rough just kind of thinking, every moment what should have been versus in reality what was happening. That was very rough, but one of the things that I was looking most forward to was trying to somehow stabilize myself by getting back into teaching, which was the only thing that, besides becoming pregnant and loving this baby, was the only thing I really just loved so much was teaching and educating kids. And so when everything with my job started kind of happening and spiraling out of control, as it relates to the paid family leave, that was just another layer of grief. I was at home on my couch all day crying, grieving my daughter. And then it very quickly also, I was grieving, the job that I once had because I was being treated so callously by my employer. And it was a lot at one time. And I immediately put myself into therapy. Um, I realized that support groups were not for me, but I had an amazing therapist that was I started with her, the week after I lost Aliyah. And she had just helped me in so many ways for a couple years get through because every day is it's just a new day without my daughter. And I have to navigate that daily. Definitely hard in the beginning, but it is a lifelong navigation for sure.
Sure. I'm not that all familiar, Liz. So, once you come from the hospital and let's say you do give birth, depending on your employer, I guess, and I don't know what the rules and the laws are here, right? They
Oh, I
give
can
you,
tell you
yeah, I'm
because I
sure,
got them
yes, you're the
changed.
expert here. They give you a certain time, whether it's paid or non-paid, or then it's up to you how to do it, right? How does that work typically?
Yeah, so we are super lucky in Washington, D.C. as we do have a paid family leave law from DC government. And so, I had applied for leave back in October of 2020. Everything was approved, ready to go. I think I was January 21st was the day that my leave would start in 2021. And so I had sent an email to HR just saying, sharing this update and originally I had had enough sick leave and everything saved up so that I would be out the remainder of the school year. And I had said, I won't need that whole leave anymore. I'm just going to take the 6 weeks of DC paid family leave to heal my body. I had had a surgery after delivering Aaliyah. I ended up hemorrhaging. So I had to be, I couldn't be up walking around and doing everything, right?
Hmm.
And so I said, once I have those 6 weeks to heal my body, I'll be back. And I was immediately met with a response of, oh, sorry, you're not eligible anymore. You can just drain your sick leave instead. And, at first I was confused. No shade to men, but I was talking to a man and I thought perhaps he didn't understand that I had still delivered a 4-pound baby. Um, she just wasn't, I just didn't get to leave with her, but I
Hmm.
still did that. And the response was, oh yeah, no, this has nothing to do with you healing your body. You don't, and the words quite literally were, you don't have a baby to bond with. Therefore, you don't get this.
So the
And
6 weeks, I'm sorry, Liz, the 6 weeks they were saying, no, you don't get that.
correct. They said,
Wow.
you have a birth certificate, you don't have a baby to bond with, so you're not eligible for this any longer. And the way that the email was written, I will never forget. I read it, it was in the evening, and I just had a full mental breakdown. And within an hour, 4 of my friends were knocking on my door because they were so worried because I was like, I was so unwell after reading this. Um, and I just was confused. I immediately sought counsel because, I'm the only one of my GW friends that's not a lawyer. So I'm like, asking them, what do I do? They're
Hmm.
reading the law. And, it's really tough because at that time, it's since been changed. The way the law was written was that it didn't really clearly define birth of a child. And I know for political reasons that is a very hard thing to define. And so, I always say that, but this was um, a viable pregnancy that I did not choose to end on my own. And I still went through a delivery process and I felt that I was still owed that leave. I still birthed a child and nobody wanted to define what that was. And I, decided to post a picture of me holding Aliyah after I had gotten that email saying that I didn't have a baby. Because all that I kept seeing there was, you don't have a baby. Like that was what I was fixated on. And so I decided to post a picture of me holding Aliyah in the hospital just out of frustration. And at that time, I barely had any Instagram followers. And I just, shared, this is what DCPS is doing to me. An employer that I loved working for them. Have always been at the same school, all that stuff. And it ended up going viral, which I never could have anticipated. And
This is through Instagram or Facebook or
through Instagram, I
okay.
guess it also cross posted to Facebook as well.
Okay.
I still don't know how that happened.
Okay.
But it caught the eyes of some very important people in DC. And within like 24 hours, I was talking to um, one of the DC council members. And, I kept saying, like, I didn't mean for this to happen. Yes, I'm very angry. Yes, I am seeking counsel, but I didn't, anticipate all of this happening.
Hmm.
I just, wanted people to know I did in fact have a baby and here she is. Because that invalidation, especially so early on, was just so, I mean, it was just, it put me in a very dangerous mental space. And I needed people to know, like, no, she was here, she was real. And so I was very grateful that the DC Council immediately passed an emergency bereavement bill, which was lovely and is still in place for people that lose a child under the age of 21. But I kept stressing that this was not, while mental health is, of course, very important, this was not a mental health issue. To me, that's something much different and something that maybe our societies were inching towards being ready to talk about. We're not fully there yet. This was me just simply healing my body after giving birth. Um, but they passed this emergency bereavement bill that gave me 14 days And then I ended up using my sick leave for the remaining 6 weeks. But I after talking to Councilwoman Henderson's office is amazing and have been such champions for this. But in October 2021, DC's paid family leave law was amended to include stillbirth as a qualifying event to still receive the leave, which I was just so grateful. I actually didn't know that that was happening. Someone had just sent me one of my lawyer friends had sent me something saying that, hey, this had been updated. Did you know? And I didn't know, but I was just so grateful because I get emails a lot from DC women that have experienced this, confused as to, do I get this leave? Do I not? I don't want to fight it. I'm just so depressed and sad. It's a lot. And when I had went viral, I got hundreds, I mean, thousands in all, but hundreds from people here in DC saying that they experienced the same thing and they just didn't have the fight in them and they just went back to work. And that causes even more trauma. And I, I didn't want, I knew it was too late for me and that I would be going back to work, but I didn't want anyone else to experience that.
Of course. So at the end of the day, then, Liz, for you, at least in your situation, you did not get the 6 weeks. You got 2 weeks, and then everything else you had to take from your own personal time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But
but
then I
now
quit,
it's
right?
different
So many
though.
people don't. Yes, now it's different. But, for years I had been saving up leave for, one day when I have a baby. So I have
Hmm.
that, but so many people don't. And then you
Yeah.
get into the issue of, okay, I'm going to take off and then I don't get my paycheck. And then that, I mean, the repercussions of this, extend to so many levels. Just like what parents experience after baby loss is not just being sad that your baby died. I mean, there are so many different levels, and I call them buckets of life that are impacted that people that haven't experienced this just don't think about. And definitely employment and finances and stuff, depending on what happens with that employment and leave, is a huge bucket that no one thinks of.
When this happened and you come back home, how was the relationship between you and the father, your
Oh,
partner?
great. He's
Okay.
very, yeah, he's very low key. We're not traditional, right? Like we're not married, we don't live together, but he is you know, the most important person in my life after Aaliyah. And, I'm just so grateful for, yeah, I mean, his support. And he's just a behind the scenes type of guy. Which I wish, and this is, for baby loss community, it's hard because so many fathers prefer to be in the background, and I do get it. But yeah, he's great.
No, because sometimes you hear when something like this happens in a relationship,
Yeah.
it could affect it in negative ways as far as the two partners going at it for yeah.
Totally. And I think, as confusing it can be for some people to, think, okay, they're not married, but they're together, they don't live together. Um, Honestly, I think it has been the best thing for us because we grieve very differently, just like most couples do. And unfortunately, when you are under the same roof, that difference in grieving can lead to divorce and separations.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, it's an interesting setup, but it works for us. And I think for this grief journey, it has been a blessing in disguise in a way.
Yeah. Are you guys still together now?
Mhm.
Okay, great. That's great. I mean, sometimes I've been with my wife now, I don't know, 19 years or so. I can't remember from when we started dating. We were on our senior year at University of Maryland.
Oh,
For almost 18, 19, almost 20 years. I like to round up.
yeah.
But even now, sometimes I feel like shipping you back to your mom's house.
Yeah. See, it works.
So I
Like,
get it. I completely
the
get it.
distance can sometimes be good. It's not, I mean, especially I think as a griever, and I am someone that I've always been extremely independent. He is also extremely independent. And it can be, you can easily butt heads with that when you just want to do things your own way. So, yeah.
You mentioned this viral post that originally was through Instagram. I mean, how big did it go? How many views do you remember?
Oh my gosh. Thousands
Wow.
between, I would say between Instagram and Facebook, well over 10,000. I very quickly was getting asked for interviews for local news, but then I was also on like CBS Nightly News talking about this. Some people in Jersey that had not yet known what happened, they actually saw me on the news up there. That's how they found out.
Oh, wow.
Um, and then I thought, wow, this is really crazy when The Sun in the UK ran a story on it. And I did an interview with them. And it just showed me like how many times this has happened to other people. And the messages that I was getting, you know, they fueled me because they would say, just keep fighting, because I couldn't do it. I was in such a broken place where I wish I had had that fire in me. And for me, I was just so mad. And I had to, because again, like as I said earlier, I just felt like my parenthood was invalidated completely. Um, and I would not stand for that. And it's so weird because when I think about where Aliyah in Action is today, you know, we just crossed 4 years on December 1st. And Aliyah in Action, I got started just 6 months after Aaliyah's stillbirth. Um, I mean, it's just, I feel like none of that would have happened if it wasn't for the way I was treated by my employer, because I had so many people that were like watching me and watching how I was grieving. And it made it really easy to announce this nonprofit that I was starting and, you know, announce that I want to help other families like this, because that's also then how Aliyah in Action just kind of started to spread like wildfire. So as awful and traumatizing as it was dealing with, you know, everything with my employer and the paid family leave and the media stuff, it actually set a really nice foundation for what I've been able to do since then.
How did the idea come about starting Aliyah in Action almost 4 years ago?
Yeah. So I'm very much the spa skincare makeup girl, and a lot of my friends and family were sending me like little self-care items. And it was really hard at first. I mean, I just had like boxes lined up, and it was really hard to feel worthy enough to use those things because you hate yourself. Your body failed you. I feel like I failed my daughter. You know, why on earth would I want to take care of myself? That like doesn't sound right.
Mhm.
Um, and then it just got to a point where I was like, oh my gosh, I need to be grateful for my friends and family sending me these things. And so I just let myself use like one little thing each day. And it helped. Like it kind of set me back on track a little bit in terms of realizing, okay, either I can wake up every day and not take care of myself, or I can wake up every day, still be just as sad and mad. But I started to find that taking care of myself just a little bit kind of helped me get through the day. Um, and I wanted that for other people. I wanted other, and I knew that not everyone's friends are sending them little spa baskets, right? And so I figured, how can I be that person? How can I be that encouragement to, yeah, you know, make yourself a cup of tea and put on a face mask, because you got to make it through this day. And quite literally feeling these items, the coolness of a face mask, the warmth of a cup of tea, the warmth of, we have fuzzy socks, those tangible things will help you get through the day. And I just wanted everyone else in my position or similar positions of baby loss to have that opportunity.
When you start Aliyah in Action, are you still working full time for the school district?
I was. So I knew that it would be my last year. I was also in the process of, you know, filing a lawsuit and all of that. So I knew that going back would not be an option.
Hmm.
And that was, you know, I kind of, as I said earlier, another thing that I was grieving. I never saw myself outside of a classroom. I've never wanted to be a principal. I've never wanted to do any of that. I've only ever seen myself as a classroom teacher. And so realizing that that was also coming to an end was really hard. But then I just kind of said, okay, well, I'm just going to teach people in a different way. And I'm going to do it through this organization, Aliyah in Action. And I always tell people I got the name Aliyah in Action driving to Costco. I don't know why. I was just driving, listening to music, and it just like hit me in the face, Aliyah in Action. And I remember just sitting in the car like, oh, Aliyah in Action, that's going to be the name. And I was just driving. Um, because you know, a parent's worst fear when you experience this is that no one is going to know your kid's name. No one is going to remember them. No one's going to think about them. And I could not stomach that. And so I knew I wanted her name in it somewhere. And then when I actually thought about what I wanted to do, delivering these packages, providing these packages for people in action just made sense. This
Yeah.
is my daughter in action, just in a different way than what I would prefer. I rather she in action destroying my home with all toys, but that's not my reality. And so this is my daughter in action, you know, serving other people whose parents, you know, also experience this trauma.
Yeah. No, a lovely name, very appropriate.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it just, I mean, it just came at me and I ran with it. And I'm so happy I did.
When you start the nonprofit list, so then this is you sitting down, getting the boxes, buying little things here and there, you yourself putting it together, and then I guess you're like, today I'm picking this hospital, or how did it happen?
Yeah, so I knew and originally when I got this started, I thought I just want to do this for GW. Um,
Okay.
I received the best care there that I could have with the limitations and the knowledge that, you know, most providers know there's still so much work to be done, but I think GW does a fabulous job. Um, I just wanted to give back to them because I was so thankful. And so, you know, I knew it would be in a box. I knew I actually went on some lost Facebook groups and I said, what little items would you have wanted? And so a bunch of people responded. Fuzzy socks was number one. So that was the first thing I got for the box. But then I also wanted to incorporate DC. And so, you know, as I said, her father is born and raised here. She would have grown up here her whole life. And we really wanted to focus on women and Black owned businesses to reflect who she would have been as a young girl growing up in DC. And so I found a couple of great local businesses, got them on board, and I launched the idea. So, also, I had hired a consultant to do all the nonprofit paperwork because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't want to mess anything up. And the money that paid for that was actually money that we had received for our baby shower. So, you know, we took that money, put it towards all the nonprofit registration, all of that stuff, had it up and running by July. And I was able to give GW packages. I think it was the first week of August. And I remember so in addition to the packages, we also have support books.
Okay.
Uh, my doula had given me some really great support books. And I feel like when you're just trying to figure out, do I want to seek, you know, one-on-one mental help? Do I want professional help? Do I want to join a support group? When you're figuring that out, you might just need to grab a book before you figure out all that stuff. And I didn't want people to have to look for that. I wanted to just give it. So we have the books in the package. And I remember she's retired now, but the women's director at GW had said to me, we've never seen anything like this before. And I think, because again, the package is not about the baby. So there's no baby things. It's pretty trigger free. And she said, you know, I think you're going to find that this is going to take off. And I said, oh yeah, I would love to be in DC hospitals. Like I was thinking, oh, that would be so nice and really, you know, further our mission of all DC everything. And, you know, we're ending 2024 and I think it's over 75 now. So,
Wow.
um, the idea, and again, I think it's because so many people, you know, after the public stuff happened with the leave, ended up following me, and I'm on social media talking about it. I had told some of the reporters that had interviewed me, hey, this is what I'm doing now is a little update if you want to do a little follow up. And Channel 7 actually did. And they gave me my first grant of $2,000 from their Eastern Automotives program. But that really propelled me. And it was, other lost moms reaching out saying, "Hey, I'm friends with the coordinator at my hospital. Can I put you in touch?" Sure. And it ended up extending far beyond just the DMV region.
So I was going to ask that next, Liz. So
Yeah.
it's a coordinator that you have to speak with in the hospitals, I guess, to get your foot in the door to be able to
Yeah.
get these packages in.
It's so different. I mean, I've learned so much about the hospital system. And it's different in every hospital. So
Oh,
some
okay.
hospitals, I just talked to a lead labor and delivery nurse. Some hospitals have bereavement coordinators, but that's kind of a luxury. A lot of the times it's just the nurses that are tasked to also do bereavement, which in and of itself is a very heavy thing to do. In addition to delivering, babies left and right. So it really just depends on the hospital. Sometimes it's with social workers. But usually, as long as I can find one person in the labor and delivery sector, I can pretty much, get to the right person to coordinate with.
On a daily basis, how often does this happen in a hospital?
So nationwide, so when we talk about stillbirth, so these packages, when they go to the hospital, they're usually split between labor and delivery, which would see stillbirth, and NICU, which would involve
Okay.
NICU loss. What I was most concerned about was how to support people that are experiencing baby loss that maybe are not in a hospital setting or are before the stillbirth window, which would be before 20 weeks. For stillbirth, there are over 60 a day in the United States. That's a full school bus of children.
Wow.
When you put it like that, I mean, yeah, when you see a school bus drive by, imagine that entire school bus being full of kids that aren't here. That's how many stillbirths happen a day in the United States. I don't know the NICU rates, but we know with miscarriage, that's 1 in 4 pregnancies. And so it's a lot of loss. It is a lot of loss. Um, and I have some hospitals where I give them packages pretty much once a month. They go in packages in groups of 10. I have some hospitals that I don't hear from for a while. So it
Okay.
just depends. I mean, there's so many, demographic factors that go into that as well. Um, but with all of my partners, I email them pretty much like every other month. And I always say, I hope you don't need me, but if you do, let me know and I will send you more packages. I'm in the business of, I hope you don't need me. I don't want you to need me.
Sure. Of course.
Um, and then in addition to hospitals, we also, and this is to really reach, one, areas where we're not partnered with hospitals, and two, families that have earlier losses. Anybody can reach out over email or DM me on social and request a package for themselves or a loved one, and we send it to them at no charge. So my mom actually handles all of those requests up in Jersey, and I down here, I got a little warehouse in Alexandria, and I do all of the hospital shipments.
I was going to ask, the beginning 4 years ago, I'm sure you wore all the hats. So is that pretty much still almost the case besides, your mom helping out in Jersey, or is it
Yeah.
different? Does it look different now?
Yep, I have an amazing volunteer that does our website. And she helps with some social media stuff. And Salesforce has been great in coming in and doing like a package making day. But, otherwise it is me, myself, and I. Um, and I'm happy doing that. Like, this is my version of parenting. And I know, my mom really wanted to get involved as Aaliyah's grandmother. And when the request for packages, those individual packages were getting just too much for me to manage, I said, you know what? I'm going to set up a little satellite Aaliyah in Action warehouse at your house. And you can do all of the individual requests, which we get about, we're averaging about 10 a month. Um, where we're shipping out to a family that reaches out for help.
And are you now doing this full time, or how does it look for you today?
I am. It's definitely been an adjustment, but yeah, I mean, I am Aliyah in action all day, every day. I also I'm a director of education at Push for Empowered Pregnancy, which is the prevention side of my work. Both
Okay.
works pretty much started at the same time. I'm a founding member of Push. And it was really important for me to, while I knew for Aaliyah in Action, it was always going to be bereavement focused, you know, again, I'm in the business of I don't want you to need me. I don't want to have to do this, but right now I do. And so I do a lot of stillbirth prevention work, so that maybe one day I have to change the mission of Aliyah in action because no one will need me. Like that's what I would like to
Yeah.
happen.
Liz, what do you know now going through the 4 years of Aaliyah in action that you didn't expect or you wish you would have known at the start of starting the organization?
Um, it has been really difficult to see how many large institutions do not value bereavement care. Um, Only a handful of my hospitals cover the cost of their own packages. And otherwise, I'm just told, oh, we don't budget for that. And to me, something that's not budgeted for means that it's not important.
Mhm.
And you have families walking out of these hospitals empty-handed when they walked in pregnant. You know, like when I left GW, I saw pregnant people coming in. And Kevin and I looked at each other and I would just said to him, oh, I hope what happened to us doesn't happen to them. You know, you're walking out empty-handed, just completely in a daze. Um, to know that care for these families is not adequately budgeted for, which means that it's not adequately talked about in those spaces, reflected on even for staff. It affects staff so deeply. And if you're not, you know, budgeting and thinking about these things, then you're also not thinking about your staff. I mean, it's just that has been really eye-opening and has made me really sad at sometimes, especially hospitals where I see a lot of loss. I want hospitals and providers to realize that something like Aliyah in Action, this is a mental health support, and it is important. Bereavement resources are important, and it's been disappointing to see that it's not for some people.
Besides, you mentioned earlier the fuzzy socks and the book. What other items are in the care package?
All right, let me see if I can get this. So we have fuzzy socks, we have a candle, we have lip balm, um, uh, we have tea, seeds of hope, which people
Okay.
plant, um, a face mask, and a shower steamer, lavender shower steamer. So they're all, you know, incorporates aromatherapy, incorporates if you're going to be crying all day on your couch, you can have some of these things with you. And then for the books, we have a book for the birthing person, for mom. We also have a book for fathers, which I've gotten really great feedback on. We have a children's book for living siblings because they are also often, you know, really not considered and how this impacts them. And we have a book. A lot of my hospitals now mostly serve Spanish speaking families. And so I have found a really good book that's in Spanish. That was a big ask, and I was so happy to find one. I had it vetted by a couple of my Spanish speaking friends because I couldn't read it, but that got the all clear. So, you know, I really try to be culturally relevant in our packages and in what we do. Um, so yeah, that's everything in the package.
I love it. I love especially all these books that it is not just obviously to the mother, which is hugely important, but also to other members of the family.
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, it's yeah, the lack of resources for fathers or partners is alarming. And that is something that, you know, I didn't want to fall by the wayside. We also have a no cost resource list in the package. So support groups, we partner with Chasing the Rainbows. She's based out of Pennsylvania. She runs daily support groups. Sad Dads Club is an amazing, you know, free support group for fathers. And then I also have on the resource card, you know, when I was in the hospital for those days, I ran to Instagram and like, you know, hashtag stillbirth, hashtag. I don't want people to have to do that because that's traumatizing. Um, and so I just have a long list of Instagram accounts that reflect all different types of families, all different types of loss that people can look up and see if what that the family went through resonates with them, if that's someone that they want to follow their support accounts. So
Liz, starting your own nonprofit, Aliyah in Action, is basically your own business per se, right? With its own cause. What would you say during this 4 year time frame has been the biggest setback, and what did you learn from that?
The biggest setback I realized, I would say halfway through 2024, um,
So just this year, okay?
yeah, I kept saying yes. I mean, this year is when I was getting hospital requests left and right. I mean, hospitals in Idaho, in Washington
Wow.
State reaching out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so good that you're finding me. And of course, I want to give to you. Yes, 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 yes. And then I would take a look at the bank account, and the bank account would say, no, 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 no. But for me, it was just so hard to say no, knowing that they need this resource. And so, I at some points in this year got to a point where I was just funding things on my own to keep us afloat. And the lesson there was, I can't say yes to everyone. And that was the hardest lesson of 2024. However, that all changed a few weeks ago, when we were awarded a $75,000 grant from, yeah. So that it turned around. The summer was rough. The summer was our roughest part. Um, but then I just got news right before Aaliyah's fourth birthday that we were chosen as recipients of the Maddie Fund, MATTIE Fund, first round recipients with a $75,000 grant. And this was not, I posted something on social media. This was not something that I applied for. It was not something that I knew we were in the running for. And while, of course, I mean, the grant money is huge for us, what really stuck out to me, I think, just as a mom, was that, wow, someone saw what we are doing and is seeing the difference that it's making for families. And I didn't have to explain that in an application. Someone just saw it and felt like we were worthy enough. And that has just meant the world to me, to know that I can go back to some hospitals I've had to say no to recently. And I can say, yes, actually, we can bring you on. Um, to know that I've had a lot of people who've received packages reach out and say, hey, can you have a retreat? Can you have a day, a workshop day where we all get together? And I haven't been able to do that because of finances. And now I can plan for that and plan for it really well, which I'm excited about. And yeah, I mean, I'm just so grateful that, I'm applying for grants left and right all day. That is what I spend a lot of my time doing. And to just know that we were seen without having to explain ourselves, you can just quite literally see what we do. I can't hide what we do, right? And we're giving packages to people, has just meant the world. And I'm excited for 2025 for what's to come for us.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that grant, Liz.
Oh, thank you so much.
So if you were before this big grant that came in earlier this year, you're self-funding this with your own finances, but you're telling me you're doing this full time. So how are you able to maintain the nonprofit and also just living your living situation in everyday life, right?
Yeah.
Did
It
you
has
have
been
savings in
crazy.
place to help out or
Yes, yeah, I had some
okay,
savings. I have, some family members that would be so helpful if I said, "Hey, Aaliyah in Action needs this," that they would step
that's
in
great.
and help out. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a pretty crazy balance for sure. But I somehow have been doing it, and I'm very grateful that I've been able to do it.
You were mentioning how these hospitals in Idaho and across the nation have reached out. So from a marketing standpoint, how are people finding you?
A lot of it I feel like has been our amazing team with Laura Evans Media. I know Laura's been on the show. I was connected to her through my board member, Lauren Ricketts, who, if anyone's familiar with her, she was a meteorologist at NBC4. She's on our board and, reached out to Laura and said, hey, we would love to get some PR stuff. And working with Laura has just been amazing. And I know that we would not have made some of the strides that we have if it wasn't for, the spots that I've had on local news and on podcasts and on shows like this. Um, this has been a really, opportunities like this have been a great way for us to grow because, what's happening is nurses and coordinators, they're Googling resources, they're Googling stuff. And if I'm coming up with a news, segment on this organization that's doing this, they're emailing me. They can see, oh my gosh, she's really out there doing this. Let me email. We want in on this too. And so, I'm just so grateful for every opportunity like this that I get, because it gives me an opportunity to talk about my story and talk about my daughter and share our mission. And I know that the end result will be us helping more families. And that is my goal.
That's great. Coming to an end here soon. If someone's listening to this list and they're like, there's a deep cause that I personally care about, it always spoke to me and I want to do something about it. Any advice or suggestions you would advise them if they wanted to start their own nonprofit as far as what to do or even what not to do?
Yeah, I think, I thought a lot about it. I mean, I know it was like a short amount of time, but this is the only thing I thought about really from January until April when I started paperwork of 2021. You know, a lot of nonprofits, I feel like that are started that was similar to how I started mine. You have to have a very, very clear goal. I did not want to reinvent the wheel. I didn't want to do support groups. There's amazing people already doing that. Um, I wanted to find something that wasn't yet being done. And so my piece of advice would be, reflect on what worked or what didn't work for you, see what's already out there. And I don't like to use the word competitors when we talk about nonprofits or especially baby loss, but I mean, that's kind of what it is, right? If we're
Hmm.
talking business, see what's already out there that you would be, kind of aligned with, and what can you do that's just slightly different? There were people out there making memory boxes, but that's not what I do. This is a mental health support, and that's what makes us so different and so attractive to hospitals and people. This has not been done before. I also think that me hiring a consultant was probably the best move ever to do that, because the nonprofit process in terms of, what paperwork you need to be legit and all of that can be very confusing. And so I was just, also from a grief standpoint, was not in a position where I could fully understand everything at that point. And so definitely having help along the way to get that more tough stuff done so I could really focus on our mission and vision as opposed to, all the paperwork, was also very helpful. It's definitely an investment, but an investment that I think is worth it in the end.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. What would you say is your biggest challenge with your role today with Aliyah in action?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, with a lack of funding and just a lack of people at the top recognizing the importance and the value of this,
Hmm.
like that will be a continued struggle. Conversations, especially about mental health and postpartum mental health, they're changing. So I feel like hope is on the horizon, but I feel like the funding and realizing how valuable a resource like this is will probably always be a struggle. Um, and I'm trying to be okay with that and come up with solutions for how to combat that instead of just, complaining about it, because I have complained about it a lot. But that doesn't get you anywhere, right? So just, for me to kind of combat that potential struggle, I just want to bring it back to me as an educator. I want to educate people on why this is important and how they can help families. When you help a family through a crisis like this, they're going to show back up to work stronger, right? They're going to be more social, be more out there. They're going to want to go to a restaurant with their friends. I mean, there's so many elements of life that are affected when you don't support a family through this. And I want to show people why this is an investment really on society and making us healthier as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, not even that, just a culture you build in and within the company, the organization, that it shows that you actually care. And
Yep.
it's if you do this, I mean, do you think they're going to go and turn around and leave you for someone else? I mean, it could happen, of course, but the chances just go so much down, decreases.
Yeah. I mean, and I think about that with my job every day. Like DCPS lost a great educator.
Hmm.
There's one thing that I could still do even after experiencing this, it was teach. And, I still talk to some of my students are like in college now that I had in second grade. I still talk to them and their families. So that says a lot about the type of teacher that DCPS lost. And I don't think any company or organization should risk losing great people because of a lack of empathy and compassion, because you never know who this could touch. And sadly, it can touch anyone. So, we just always have to, I try to just always lead with empathy and gratitude. I've tried to always do that, just because I have been a teacher in an urban setting. That's kind of like part of the deal. But especially since losing Aaliyah, for me, that has just been two values that I just cannot compromise, is leading with empathy and gratitude.
Liz, what does the future look like the next couple of years for you and Aliyah in action? What are you most excited about?
Oh my gosh, I'm just excited to grow. Receiving this grant has just been a huge boost in confidence for me that we're doing something right. And if this person can see us, Dr. Alfie, with her funding, then who else is going to see us? And it's unfortunate because it's usually people that have been touched by this. And so, me continuing to put myself out here like this, I know I'm going to keep catching the eyes of people that either have a personal connection or are very invested in mental health and the importance of those resources. Um, I know that Aliyah in Action is only going to continue to grow and grow. And I can't wait to hire my first employee. I keep telling my mom I would love for her to be my first employee, but I can't wait to see Aliyah in action. I can do it all by myself right now, but I'm very excited to see us need more people to help us running it. I'm just excited for our growth. And I'm excited to, as much as I wish we didn't have to support families that otherwise would not be receiving proper bereavement support after this loss.
Sure. When you're not busy with Aliyah in action, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
Oh my gosh, I'm a big reader. So I read a lot, I cook a lot, and way before any of this happened, I have an Instagram account where I, go around to all bars and I focus all, specialty cocktails and all of that. And wine education is something that I'm very into. So unfortunately, that Instagram between COVID and then all of this has, not been doing what I used to do back in the day with events and stuff. But I love going out to new restaurants and I love craft cocktails and all of those things. And, just being with my friends, enjoying all of that.
Well, I love that. Do you see yourself ever in the future maybe trying maybe to have another one, or what do you think after
Yeah,
going through this?
yeah, probably. I mean, it's hard and it's just everybody goes through it and everything after so differently.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm sure that'll be coming down the pipeline.
Great. Liz, if people want to learn more about you, maybe want to contribute and donate, where can they go to, please, to find out more information?
Our website is aliyahinaction.org, and it's AALIYAH and then inaction.org. You can find us at Aliyah on social media. I'm Elizabeth on LinkedIn. I love to connect with people on LinkedIn. And we have it set up as that to sponsor a package, it's $60 if you want to sponsor a package, and you can sponsor entire hospital drops, or people can sponsor, the next 200 books. We have all different types of options. And I really love that for businesses or families that donate in honor of their baby, or for any of our corporate sponsors. I always say families that experience this never forget those that were there for them during this time. And so, I'll just use my own name as an example. In the package, we can put this package was sponsored by Elizabeth O'Donnell, or your business name. And to me, that's not a form of advertisement or anything. It's just, families to know, okay, wow, this business sees us in this moment, is really, really important. And I know families feel such deep gratitude with that.
I love that, Liz. So if someone wants to donate, whether personally or for their business, can they also select which hospital? Maybe
Absolutely. Oh my
maybe
gosh.
they have a deep connection with the local hospital. I don't know, right?
1000%. Oh yeah, we do that all the time. And with all the grants we receive, we translate that to number of packages. And then those packages have little notes saying, most recently, Capitol Hill Community Foundation, so all those packages will have, I think it's like 80 for them. They'll have, Capitol Hill Community Foundation in there so that people know, like, these are the organizations, the businesses, the funders that care about this.
That's a great idea, and I love that.
Yeah.
Liz, thank you so much for coming on today
Thank
and
you.
sharing your story.
I appreciate it. And anybody also, I'll just say, anyone that would like a package for themselves or a loved one, please reach out. We send them all across the country at no cost to the family. I just need a name and address.
Fantastic. Liz, one last thing. Is there any question maybe that I didn't ask that you maybe want to highlight or share or talk about?
No, I mean, I think you covered everything. And I just always like to end with people, knowing since I talk about funding so much, I also just want people to know, if you need support, to reach out with me. Reach out to me. I'm the only person on the email account. So, I get back to people right away, either on email or, on direct message. So if you're looking for support for yourself or a loved one, please don't hesitate to reach out.
I love that. Thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you.